Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Glen Burnie on this gorgeous Wednesday morning. Glad the rain held off. The 2020 presidential election, is only 76 days away. And executing the 2020 election during a global pandemic has presented incredible challenges and in an ever-shifting landscape. Anne Arundel County leaders have been working diligently and collaboratively to protect our ability to vote both in person and by mail, safely and securely. On November 3rd, this nation will elect our next president, and here in Anne Arundel County, we will also be voting on school board elections and many important charter amendments. Every vote counts, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to the county executive, Mr. Stuart Pittman. And I think I forgot to stand.
Is this yours? Thank you, Chairwoman Pickard. As we look forward to the November 3rd general election, I'm looking back at when we started planning for this election, and I think it was our first budget meeting with Mr. Torrey, our head of our Board of Elections, where he told us that the sorry, hold. Okay. I thought you were telling me to stand up straight, Chris. All right. So as we look forward to the November 3rd election, I'm looking back to the first meeting that I had with Joe Torrey, who runs our elections in Anne Arundel County. And he told us at that meeting that the 2020 general election would likely have the highest turnout in the history of Anne Arundel County elections. They're projecting an 85% turnout. So, of course, he was asking for money to be able to hire all the people that would be needed to manage this election. Then the pandemic came. And our office here figured out how to do a mail-in election for the primary. And that was a decision made by the governor that I think was the right decision for our primary during a pandemic, to be able to mail a ballot to every voter in Anne Arundel County so that we could fill it out and send it in and cast our vote. And it worked. Then, so here we are facing the general election, and we still have the same coronavirus pandemic that we had in the primary, and we've done some good work to flatten the curve on that pandemic, and our health officer, Dr. Nilesh Kalyanaraman, will talk about that and where we stand with respect to the pandemic. But we face another challenge, which is that our election office is not allowed to send ballots out to our voters this time. Instead, they're told that they should send ballot request forms to our voters so that they can mail in the request form to be processed, to then have a ballot mailed for them to mail that ballot back to be counted. We still have the pandemic, so there are a lot of people that are concerned about going to a polling place in the middle of a pandemic, and I share that concern. So now we have, in addition to those challenges of a pandemic and a retreat from mail-in voting in the state of Maryland, we have a president who is warning us that the Postal Service may not have the capacity to handle the ballots and get them in on time. So it's a mixed message coming between the president and what our health officers are telling us about protecting our health. So my message today is that in Anne Arundel County, we will protect our health and our votes. Whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent, your health and your vote are absolutely important, and it's our job to protect them. So our plan has 4 parts. First, I want to encourage anybody who's not registered to vote to please register. You can do that online. And even if you are a registered voter, one of the nearly 400,000 registered voters in this county, we are encouraging you to get started now, to request a ballot now, online, to get that process started. We're going to be doing a social media campaign asking people to protect your health and your vote, request a ballot now. That's not your only option, and that's not the only way that we're going to try to protect your vote. If you're concerned about the Postal Service's capacity to handle that, we have drop-off ballot boxes like this one here that will be in 29 sites around the county, far more than we've ever had in the past. And those boxes will be emptied 3 times a day, and each one will have a security camera on it to protect your vote. And that will start on October 1st. I'm going to move back to the request a ballot part of this as well. You will get in the mail a ballot request form, but you can move before that by going to the website, the state's website, to request a ballot. And I want to caution people about that process and warn them that it takes some time. It took me 9 minutes. I asked a lot of my staff to go through that process. They averaged about 5 or 6. They're better on the computer than I am. People who spend all day, every day on a computer, it takes 5 or 6 minutes. The form that you'll find actually requires you to re-register to vote, and it asks you all the questions that you would be asked. You need to have your driver's license with you, and there are pages and pages of questions. So we hope that the state of Maryland will change that site to make that process easier. But still, try. And then you will get a written ballot request form in the mail if you're not able to get through that process. Then there's early voting. We knew that the numbers in our early voting sites would be far higher than they've ever been in the past. Our early votes centers in Anne Arundel County were all at libraries in past elections. Most of them were at libraries. And with social distancing, we calculated that the average library could handle about 40 people inside, including poll workers, at a time. So we went to our Board of Education. State law does not require schools to be open for early voting. Normally schools are in session, and early voting for a full week would be very difficult for them to do. But I want to thank Dr. Arlotto. After hearing the numbers and hearing the concerns, he made it possible for us to use high school gymnasiums and cafeterias as early voting sites. And the average capacity in those with social distancing is about 6 times higher, about 250 people per site. So you will be able to social distance at those sites. And then, in addition to those 7 sites, we'll have a total of 29 sites on Election Day, and they're all called voting centers and have higher capacity than the polling places, the 195 polling places that we normally have in a general election in Anne Arundel County. I have a warning for people about the process that if you have requested your ballot and sent it in, don't try to vote again at one of these polling sites, because state law requires that both of your ballots be destroyed if you vote twice. So vote once. Finally, I want to put in a plug for people to work the polls, young people in particular. I understand that we're still looking for poll workers to be able to manage all of these sites. And then finally, please go to aacounty.org/vote for information that you're hearing at this press conference about our efforts to protect your vote and your health, so that we can make this election work. As our council chair said, we not only have the presidential election, but we have school board elections, and we have some very important charter amendments in the county, and we need to hear from everybody in this election. So I'm going to pass it on to Dr. Nilesh Kalyanaraman, who will give, from the doctor's perspective, how we should manage this election and keep ourselves healthy.
Thank you, County Executive. I'm Nilesh Kalyanaraman, the Health Officer for Anne Arundel County. In this election season, we're paying close attention to how you can vote safely during the COVID-19 pandemic. Right now, our county is heading in the right direction, with cases decreasing and our percent positivity decreasing as well. People have been using masks, maintaining physical distance, washing their hands, and avoiding large gatherings to minimize the spread of the virus. It's working. We need to continue these steps as we turn out to vote this fall. Voting by mail or using a drop box is the safest way to vote, since you don't need to be near others to do it. If you're unable to wear a mask, have underlying health conditions, or are older, we recommend you vote by mail to protect yourself and others. If you choose to vote in person, the Board of Elections is increasing the number of voting sites to decrease the number of people at any one site during early voting. They're also setting up larger sites to make sure that people can be distanced from each other. We also recommend that you use the early voting period when crowds are generally smaller. When you go to vote, make sure you wear a mask at all times, keep those hands clean with hand sanitizer, and maintain a 6-foot distance. I'll now turn it over to Joe Torrey, the election director, to talk about the steps the Board of Elections is taking to make it easier and safer for you to vote this fall.
Thank you, Doctor. I won't say your last name, I'd probably murder it. Thanks. My name is Joe Torrey. I'm the election director for Anne Arundel County. It's important that you hear from me today because I'm the one that orchestrates this election and makes sure that we have our COVID-19 pandemic protocols in place at our 28 voting centers, our 7 early voting sites. There will be many changes for the November 3rd general election in Anne Arundel County. Registered voters, as the county executive has stated, are not going to be automatically mailed a ballot. That's a problem. You're going to be mailed a vote by mail application. Please protect your health and your vote. Request your vote by mail application now by going online to our website and the county website. Do not wait for the state to mail you an application. That will be too late. Do it now. If this office gets inundated with applications at the last minute, our office may not be able to process those applications and get you a ballot in time. Return your vote by mail application to our office as soon as possible. Do not wait until the last minute to submit your vote by mail application, as stated earlier. You have to do it now. In Anne Arundel County, 7 new high-capacity early voting sites will be operating. As the county executive stated, they were in libraries and small areas, and we could not process enough voters. With partnering with the Board of Education and using our high schools is just a 100% plus for everyone. There'll be 28 high-capacity vote centers in the schools. The 7 early voting sites will turn into vote centers. So we'll have 21 high-capacity sites. The 7 early voting sites will roll right into Tuesday, November 3rd. So it gives us 28. If I can hire more election judges, additional election judges, as you know, we're in this situation because election judges are not planning to work this election. They're afraid of the pandemic, COVID-19. So if I can hire additional election judges, we will try to open up more sites. That's one of our goals as well. We want to make it as easy as possible for you to vote and as safely as possible. There's 4 ways to cast your ballots, as you can see on these posters. You can mail your vote by mail ballot to the Board of Elections. You can drop your vote by mail ballot off at a drop box. Vote in person on an early voting site, or vote at a vote center on election day. Now, since the state did not mail out ballots as they did in the primary, I'm going to tell you now that we will probably have lines. So it's very important that you go online now, fill out your application, and send it to our office. You know, if you're online, it'll automatically come to our office. We'll get it in our statewide voter registration system. As the county executive said, we predict an 85% turnout. 85% turnout means that we'll probably have 337,583 people show up for this election. We predict 50% will vote by mail. That's 168,792. Again, that's why it's important to get those applications into my office early. If I get 100,000 a couple weeks before the election, I may not be able to process them. 30% will vote on election day. That's 101,275. 20% will vote early voting. That's 67,517. Vote by mail ballot application deadline is October 20th, 2020. The in-person ballot request deadline is 8 p.m. on election day, November 3rd. My office will be open. It's open now. We have been here since the beginning of this pandemic to serve the citizens of this county. Again, request your ballot. Go online. You can text 7788 VBM or VPC to receive an online vote by mail application. When you request your ballot, it can be delivered to you by mail or email. This is important. If you choose to have your ballot emailed to you, you must print your ballot at home. You have to have a printer. Make your selections. Sign your oath. Put it in an envelope that you have at home and mail it back to our office. Vote by mail ballots will begin. Vote by mail ballot application mailing on September 19th. Voted ballots must be postmarked by Election Day, November 3rd. The deadline for voted ballots will be returned to our office November 13th. That's the second Friday after the election. So ballots are timely as long as they're postmarked on Election Day, and we receive them by the second Friday after the election. October 1st is the proposed start date for our office to begin canvassing return ballots. We get a lot of questions about that. When will we start canvassing ballots? That October 1st date has to be approved by the Maryland State Board of Elections. We're waiting for that approval. Canvassing ballots will be live streamed online on the county YouTube channel as they were in the primary election. I have 60 people in the building. We're self-distancing. To keep that order in place and self-distance in the office, we can't have the public come in our office and watch us count ballots. It will be live streamed. Voter registration deadline is October 13th. If you miss the October 13th voter registration deadline, same day registration is available during early voting and election day. What's that mean? You can go during early voting or election day, register to vote, and if you are pre-qualified means you have a Maryland driver's license, we will be able to process your application and you can vote on the voting machine. If you're not pre-qualified, you will vote a provisional ballot. Provisional ballots will be check in our office, make sure you qualify, and if you qualify, your provisional ballot will be counted. You can also register to vote online. Text VOTE, V-O-T-E, or VOTA, V-O-T-A, to 77788. You'll receive an online voter registration application. Early voting dates begin on Monday, October 26th, and run through November 2nd. Voting hours during early voting are from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., including Saturday and Sunday. I want to take this opportunity to thank the county executive, the county administration, the Anne Arundel County Council, the Board of Education for partnering with us to make sure that we have a successful election for the citizens of Anne Arundel County. Thank you.
We probably should stay close. Got questions? Yeah.
How many people have already requested their mail-in ballots?
Right now we have, okay, sorry. Right now we have a little over 80,000. So it's a low number, very low number. And that's why we're here today, to plead with the public to send in their application so they can be safe on Election Day.
You mentioned
I've been watching the State Board of Elections meetings, and I heard you on one of them, along with the Maryland Association of Elections officials.
Well, that wasn't me, that was my deputy, David Garris, but go ahead.
I heard you on, well, you were on one of them.
Yes.
I heard from you and from David Garris a real sense of urgency, like, why, let's get this done now, we need dates now. And when, I just wanted to clarify when you say the state isn't allowing, or the state, has it been frustrating for the State Board of Elections to have waited this long to make decisions, and there's a lot of decisions they haven't made yet that you're waiting for? What are you waiting on from them still?
We are waiting for them to, right now we're going to wait for them to approve our sites that you see on these posters today. We have to go out and do a survey of every one of the schools in our sites, make sure they're ADA compliant, make sure that we have the power that we need. And it's been very frustrating for election officials throughout the state, my colleagues, for the decisions that haven't been made quickly or the changes. So it's been we have a lot of work to do, and that's why it was important for me to be here with the county administration, the county executive, to move forward and announce these sites now. They're the sites we're going to have, and I'm sure that they will be approved by the State Board of Elections. I know that they qualify.
At this point, are you looking at a possible systematic voting failure for the locally?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
At this point, are we looking at a possible systematic voting failure locally?
No way. We will not have a systematic voting failure. That's why, again, we're here today. There is no way that this office can fail, and we will not fail.
So we have less voting locations than last year? It's not election day?
We have more voting locations than we had in the primary. We're going to have 28. We only had,
What about last year, though, or not last year, but the general election before?
yes, that's a good point. Usually we have 195 locations.
We only have 28 now?
Yes, we only have 28. But let me explain something. When you have 195 locations, that's your voting in your neighborhood. And you have to go there because it's your neighborhood and it's your ballot style. When we have vote centers, you can come to a vote center from wherever you live. It doesn't matter. I'll have all the ballot styles there for a voter.
Is it going to be available for people to,
Pardon me?
public transportation going to be available for people to get to the voting center?
Yes, every one of our sites, that's another criteria. There is public transportation. There are bus routes around our schools and our locations, yes.
What are the numbers on the voting volunteers that's gone down, the people who help with the voting? I know they dropped drastically in Baltimore. Has that happened in Anne Arundel County?
During the primary election, we had a full amount of election judges We require 2,800 election judges in Anne Arundel County. When the decision was made late that the vote by mail ballots were going to be mailed to every voter, then I had to scale it back down. So since I had 2,800 election judges for the primary election, right after the general election, I asked my election worker department to call each and every one of those election judges and confirm that they were going to vote, not vote, but to work with us on the general election. That's when they started dropping out. That's when some of them said, maybe I'll work for you. Let's see where the pandemic lands and closer to November and Thanksgiving. If it's bad, I'm not going to work for you. So that person that said maybe, we dropped them because we can't depend on them. But we can't depend on anything at this point. We don't know what the pandemic's going to be doing as we move closer to November.
Mr. Torre,
Yes.
Give you a chance. I know you said there's 29 ballot drop boxes, and people have said to me, "Well, why aren't there more?" Can you explain why you're limited to the number that you're allowed? I mean, they're special, but you're also limited. How many would you put out if it was your decision to make? The drop box.
Well, it is my decision to make, but it's also it's a problem with the manufacturing the drop boxes. So we've been told by the state board that the 29 I have, we may be able to give you more, but we're not sure. And we have not heard from them yet to tell us when is the drop dead deadline to order boxes.
And I want to clarify another thing. I was under the impression that the high capacity vote centers would be for anyone who lives in that county or that jurisdiction, but I have heard elsewhere anyone in the state can go to any high capacity vote center. Can you clarify which is correct?
Well, technically, you're both correct. They are both correct. But we don't urge voters to go from here to Prince George's County and vote, or Baltimore City. There is a part of the law, and there is a part of the law if you go there, the only votes that will count is for president. You won't be able to vote on anything else on the ballot. So that's what that means.
And finally, one more related to the mail issue. And I know the state board of elections still hasn't mailed out the applications for a ballot yet. So what if you requested a ballot online, and then while you're waiting for it to come, you get the application from the state, hedge your bets, and send that in too? Will that void the ballot you get?
That's a good question. If you request an absentee ballot or vote by mail ballot online, and you have a Maryland driver's license and you're registered to vote and you're already pre-qualified, you're in our system, that automatically comes to us electronically, and we process that the next day. So right now we are receiving, I think yesterday we had over 800 applications. So we stay in, my employees stay here until they're in the system, but it comes electronically, so you're already in. If you mail us an application, we process it right away. But that's why we want people to go online and use the online system. If you're registered to vote, we're going to get it electronically.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
You're expecting 50% of the voters to vote by mail. When will you be able to call the election?
Well, what we're asking now is to start counting ballots October 1st, because we started counting vote by mail ballots early. And we're asking for that so we can be certified on Friday the 13th. By law, we are supposed to be certified by the 13th. Anne Arundel County has never missed that date. I hire enough people to bring them in. I hire 100 election judges, bipartisan pair of election judges. I have teams of 50 people to help us count ballots. During the primary election, I had a plethora of employees, not election judges, to help. So we're waiting on that decision from the State Board of Elections to give us that capability so we can certify on time and not wait, not have our citizens wait for the results.
Okay, will you turn people away at the voting centers if they don't have a mask on?
During the primary, we could not turn people away. The Attorney General gave us an opinion that yes, we can turn people away. So what does that mean? That means Joe Torre will make sure that masks are there to give you one. If you say you're not going to wear it, you can't come in. Because if you come in, that means we have to do COVID-19 protocols because you may have been infected. Although we are wiping surfaces down routinely on election day, we can't have someone come in without a mask. So they will be turned away. Good question.
Mr. Torrey, has the state,
Well, wait a minute, let's go.
how many or do you need? Two-part question. And then also, we've heard from other counties that there are problems with them applying on the state's website. Are y'all having problems with that in Anne Arundel County and what county?
Our election judge shortage as of this morning is 147. I require 1,398 for the locations you see here today. I don't know. I am getting applications every day electronically and from the Maryland State Board of Elections. The way I've instructed our voter registration or our election recruiting department is we have to contact that person the day that we get their application, because we do get complaints that we haven't responded. So if we have an email address, we automatically send them, but sometimes we get just an interest email. We don't get the application. So in that case, we send an application. But right now I have 636 applications waiting and we've responded to that I can hire. But the problem is, it sounds like a lot right now, but the problem is as we move forward to November 3rd, I have 30 to 40 to drop out every week. They just, their children probably, average age of election judge is 62. Their children probably said, Mom, Dad, you shouldn't go out. So we get a call. So 30 to 40 drop out. We get them dropping out every day. So it's like playing Russian roulette, with the, it's a problem.
Mr. Torrey, as of the last week's State Board of Elections meeting, the board members asked, and no one knew the answer, do we have a COVID policy? If a judge or a voter at a certain site has coronavirus, what's the plan? Do we shut it down? Does that be 14 days? Do we move to another one? Have they communicated if there's a policy, and if there is, what is it?
Yes, there is a policy, and we train our election judges that if you're sick or have a fever that day, you cannot come to work. So for that purpose, usually I have 200 standby election judges on election day, every election. I have 100 Democrats and 100 Republicans. I'm turning that into 400 for this election to make sure that we are covered in our 28 sites. Every year that I have 200, I use every one of them, maybe a handful. And that handful I bring back to my office, and they help us during the day, take out ballots, or we make them runners or something. But there is a policy.
What about the site itself? There were questions about that. Would it have
Well, the site itself, we are qualified to. We have wipes, we have sprays, disinfectants. We're wiping down the surfaces of the voting units after the customer leaves. We're wiping down the surfaces at the check-in table. We have sneeze guards in front of our check-in judges, and we have guards up where the voters vote to keep them. And we have self-distancing markers inside and outside the polling place to make sure that they stay 6 feet apart.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to belabor. I meant if there is a presumed case or suspected case, perhaps the next day. I didn't mean your protocol during it. I meant
Okay, if there's a case that day.
or if you find out that night, oh, this election judge or this voter who voted here today has a presumed case of COVID.
Okay, okay.
That was what there was no.
Good question. Good question. No, it's okay. I have that covered. We have a vendor on call right now that can come in and spray. They'll fog the precinct, the polling place, and they'll also wipe down any surfaces, and we can do that overnight. So if it's an early voting center, we'll make sure we'll have that vendor come in. We have them on call now.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Is it realistic that each vote expects to go online and register, get a ballot, and get it in by, so that it'll count for November 3rd?
Yeah, the deadline to have that in was, I can't remember all these dates. But there is a deadline that we'll post up here for you. There is a deadline.
I had a question for the county executive or the health officer. Would you mind talking really quickly about the letter sent to the state for contact tracing ended last week?
Are you talking about the letter from some of the county executives requesting data? Yeah, I mean, I do weekly calls with the Central Maryland county executives, and we talk about our strategies related to the coronavirus. And we were having regular meetings with the governor, and that stopped about 4 or 5 meetings in. And so it's been many months since we've been able to meet with the governor about strategy. When the governor came out in his press conference and talked about the tracing information and how that was guiding policy about what to reopen, and we're all making those decisions county by county, we looked at each other and said, where's the data? This is our data about our counties, and we want to be able to be a part of the conversation. And so we decided that we should really make some requests. I know the health officers get some data, and they've been making requests of the Department of Health Maryland, but it's been slow getting that information, and we're the ones on the ground making the decisions about reopening. So we've asked for the data.
And that's what you do like every week, every day? Do you have an expectation for?
No, but at the point where the data comes in and it's guiding policy and it's going to be announced to the public in a press conference, we'd like to see it so that we can make our plans about reopening and about fighting the pandemic based on the data.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.